What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. Today, we're taking a look at some more wide receivers in the 2023 NFL Draft. We've taken a look at a lot of those guys who are projected to go in the first round, the Quentin Johnstons of the world, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers. We've looked at all those guys. But now, what if the Giants don't go receiver in the first round, and they decide to target that position in the middle rounds? Let's go ahead and take a look at a couple guys in those middle rounds who could be perfect fits for the New York Giants. Michael Wilson out of Stanford, and Andre Yoshivis, I think that's how you say his name, Yoshivis, out of Princeton. So some really interesting guys here, intriguing day 2, maybe day 3 prospects that the Giants could target. And Alex and I have been taking a look at their tape, looking at what they could provide to the Giants offense. We think that they're really good fits with the team, and we're excited to see, especially a couple of them standing out at the Senior Bowl. We're excited to see how they shape out in the 2023 NFL Draft and if they are a fit for our New York Giants. So we're going to go ahead and dive into those guys, but before we do, make sure to leave a like if you enjoy this episode and subscribe to the channel if you're new and ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, bing, as Alex loves to say. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. And, we've talked about some of the best receivers in this draft class. Yesterday, we discussed Quentin Johnston in, detail and really what he would offer this Giants team as a physical playmaker. Actually, I saw a really interesting comp to him, Mike Williams from the Chargers, which makes sense. Fast, good physical traits. But again, he doesn't use that physicality all the time to his benefit. In terms of going up in high pointing catches, can drop a lot of. He had 8 drops last year, I believe. So there are some definitely negatives that come with Johnston, but his upside is tremendous. We talked about Jordan Addison, obviously, and Zay Flowers, and there's a couple of other receivers that we will discuss this offseason, as that's one of the more prominent groups the Giants do need to address. But there are some mid to late round prospects who do have some really nice value. We talk about Darius Slayton as a guy that is becoming a free agent. Sterling Shepard actually just today became a free agent. So the Giants are already down 2 receivers, Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard. We'll see if they bring either of them back. There's a pretty good likelihood that neither return, in my opinion. I could see Shepard coming back on a veteran minimum deal if he's willing to accept really just a little bit amount of very minimal amount of money. He can be productive when he's healthy, but again, very rarely he's actually healthy for a full season. And he does have some value as a kind of energizer bunny in the locker room. You can replace speed. Speed is not a problem. There are some guys that we have in mind today that we're going to discuss. The first one, Michael Wilson, as Anthony mentioned, out of Stanford, then Andre Yoshivas out of Princeton. So these two players are really interesting in their own respects. Michael Wilson has had some injury issues in the past. He's going to be a late round pick, but he's really great tangible traits. Like, this is a guy who, if he can stay healthy, could end up becoming a really nice receiver at the NFL level. Just the stats aren't going to be exactly what you think. 26 receptions, 418 yards, and 4 touchdowns last year. So the injury definitely hurt him. It was kind of a undisclosed injury that deemed him out for the rest of the season. Nobody knows what really happened, but he's a former 4-star recruit, top 35 ranked player at the position, going to Stanford, and he checks the boxes, man. He's a good height, good weight, good wingspan. He stands at 6'2", 210 pounds, coming out of the Pac-12. I actually really like Michael Wilson because he plays a really nice style. He has really good yak, run after the catch is pretty solid. Really nice tangible traits, as I mentioned. Good ball skills. He has good hands. And I think we need receivers who can catch the freaking ball, like, first and foremost. We have too many players who drop passes just far too often. But I do like Wilson as a nice late round kind of flyer, just taking a risk here at a guy with upside. A couple injuries. We've seen players that have been injury prone at the collegiate level be fine at the next level. Could be stuff that just isn't long term, maybe just short term things that need to be corrected. Maybe it could be workout related, just professional level workout rooms and strategies and processes may be a better fit for guys like this. But Michael Wilson, I do like him as a pretty solid prospect. He's raw. The production, the injuries definitely do hurt his draft stock, which is exactly why he kind of slides into the back end of this draft and becomes a nice flyer with really nice upside for a Giants team that may not want to risk, or I wouldn't say risk, but spend a first round pick. And there's not much free agent help here. After the first, second round, the receiver talent definitely has some sort of drop-off, as it would in any draft. But Michael Wilson, with his tangible traits, definitely fits the bill and could be a nice player for this Giants team. He's got the great size. He can play on the outside. He can move around. The developmental upside is certainly there for him, and he can return punts. So we need a guy that can do that with good hands, that isn't going to muff punts like Richie James did all year last season. So I would like to get a guy like Michael Wilson who could provide instant value in that respect. Late-round picks a lot of times are just special teams guys. So bringing bringing on a guy like that with developmental upside as a receiver who can also contribute immediately as a punt returner, I see value there. Now, I do think that he could really offer this team some production, whether it be in a special teams role or obviously as a receiver on the outside or whatever it might be if he has a good camp. So, Anthony, when you're looking at Michael Wilson, what do you think about him? Do you think that there is any potential for the Giants to look at him and say, you know what, this guy has some nice upside? The injuries definitely will push him back into the late portion of the draft, but with so much capital towards that back end, they have so many picks back there. You might take a shot on a player like this and see what you get out of him.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think that his Senior Bowl did a lot to help his draft stock. Now, I think Michael Wilson is a player who probably does land in those middle rounds, as you mentioned, Alex, probably somewhere in the 4th or 5th round. But without those injuries in his collegiate career, he might be a second-round prospect. Like, this kid has all the tools and traits that you want out of a wide receiver. And that's why he's a perfect player to take a flyer on in the middle rounds. Even if the Giants do draft a receiver in the 1st round, why not take a flyer on a guy like Michael Wilson for all the things that you just mentioned anyway, Alex? He can contribute on special teams, he can return punts, and he has developmental traits to be a really solid receiver in the league. So I would be willing to take a chance on him, even if the Giants do go receiver in round 1, as maybe a hopeful developmental guy for your wide receiver 2 or 3. Now, one of the things I really like about Michael Wilson is his size. He's 6'2", 209 pounds. He can play on the outside, but he actually plays a bit on the outside and on the inside. He's got the versatility to play both positions. You can move him around your offense, and again, the yards after the catch are a huge bonus, but this guy runs some pretty good routes. Now, we kind of mentioned it, there are some ginormous red flags with Michael Wilson. 2 season-ending injuries in his collegiate career, one in 2020, one in 2022. This is a raw prospect. He missed out on a lot of playing time in college, so he didn't get the refinement and development that he needed during his collegiate playing career. Now, that's a big deal because entering his NFL career, it's going to be tough to see what kind of impact he can make immediately, and he might not be able to make one at all. This might be a player that you do draft in those middle rounds, and you hope to develop for year 2 or year 3 breakout. But year 1, not having that full season in 2022 playing at the collegiate level, that is definitely a cause for concern. One thing that helps me alleviate that concern just a bit, though, Alex, is that performance at the Senior Bowl. Go watch some of those highlights of Michael Wilson at the Senior Bowl. The guy was unguardable, and he was going up there making highlight reel receptions on every single play. Like, his catch radius, insane. His body control, insane. His ability to high point passes, utterly insane. Like, this guy can do it all in terms of being a deep threat and going up there and making those contested catches. And then watch a few other clips of him at the Senior Bowl. Nasty slant routes, some good curls, some nice comebacks. The guy runs a good route tree. This is a really solid player. Now, again, he played at Stanford, not necessarily facing the best competition. It's not like he played at Alabama or Ohio State. And you have those injuries to keep in mind. Some huge red flags there. But this is definitely one of those players that when you look at traits and developmental players in the middle rounds, Michael Wilson really stands out to me. Again, I think that without those injuries, without the limited production and experience in college, I think Michael Wilson would probably be in the conversation as a round 2, day 2 draft pick, round 2 or 3. But since he has all those red flags, he probably falls into the day 3 range, and he falls into rounds 4 or 5. And that's what can make him a draft day steal, right? For the Giants, looking for receiving depth, looking for receiving talent, and developmental guys that they can hope maybe turn into something one day, Michael Wilson fits that bill extremely well. It's kind of, he reminds me a little bit of a guy like Isaiah Hodgins, a late pick, who can kind of burst onto the scene in year 2 or 3. That's what I kind of see with Michael Wilson. So I really like the idea of taking a chance on him in those middle rounds, and I'm curious to know your thoughts on that, Alex.
Absolutely. I mean, middle rounds, look, the injuries are going to hurt his stock just because they do, but he had such a great Senior Bowl that you're right. He will get a little bit more attention. He's got great hands. We talked yesterday a lot about Quentin Johnston's inability to use his hands to corral passes. He uses a lot more of his body. Michael Wilson is capable of going up and high pointing passes and making some really nice catches by using his hands, and he has good fundamentals. His release package is pretty solid. Played a lot of off-ball corners, obviously at the collegiate level, going up against in the Pac-12, with Stanford. But at the end of the day, he's got a nice release package. If you watch the clips from the Senior Bowl, he really does some damage on these cornerbacks. They have no chance. He's got good speed downfield. He's explosive. He puts his body in position to make plays. I really like him up to this point. He's a guy that would absolutely, if you can find him in the 4th or 5th round, to take a shot on him. The Giants they're not going to wait on a player, though. They could go a little bit earlier and find a guy, maybe package a couple of those late rounders together, move up and get a guy that they feel as though could be a productive player. A lot of people think that he could be an immediate contributor at the next level. So I do like Michael Wilson a lot. I do think that he could be a really nice piece for this offense and someone who could immediately step in and be productive alongside a guy like Isaiah Hodgins, alongside maybe a guy you draft in the first round, whether that be a Jordan Addison or a Johnston or whoever the Giants go with, or if they go and trade for a receiver. There's going to be some guys that shake loose this offseason. You know, they've also already mentioned the fact that Keenan Allen could become a free agent. Who knows what his market's going to be like? The Giants could go in a multitude of different directions here, but taking flyers on quality players, especially ones that, you know, have good Senior Bowls and have proven traits and good tangibles and really a lot of upside, I'm totally down with that. I'm really cool with that. So Mike Wilson certainly stands out to me. The next guy on the list, Andre Yoshivas. This is a player I think could be the perfect replacement for Darius Slayton because he's an all-star track guy. He is an all-American track athlete for Princeton. So when you're looking at someone like Andre Yoshivas, who has 66 receptions for 943 yards and 7 touchdowns last year, he's a complete burner, 6'4", 200 pounds, ridiculous tangible traits. He's fast as hell. After the catch, he's tremendous. He can destroy corners at all phases of his route tree. You know, the beginning, the middle, the end. You can't catch him, and he's got great hands. So you're talking about two guys here, Michael Wilson and Andre Yoshivas. We focused in on these two players because they're pretty developed despite the lack of competition they faced off against, but they both have tremendous hands, good body control, great tangibles. They're going to grade out really well at the combine if they both go. So I'm really excited to see what they can do. And, you know, if you want to look at the Draft Network's pros and cons, I'll read them to you for Andre Yoshivas so you kind of have an idea of what they think. Elite athletic profile, size and strength, ball skills, rack ability, the top concerns, competition at the collegiate level, didn't run a diverse route tree, and perimeter blocking. By the way, Michael Wilson is a really good perimeter blocker, another reason why the Giants may fall in love with him during this draft class. But when we're looking at Yoshivas, a lot of his reasons for concern are stuff that are just not in his control. You know what I mean? Competition in college, the diverse route tree. They didn't ask him to run a diverse route tree. They didn't have the best competition. These things were out of his control. Everything else, all of the tangibles, all the fundamentals are strengths. So, and reasons to buy in for what it's worth. So I think that when you're looking at Andre Yoshivas, what he can contribute to this team, really cheap guy to replace Darius Slayton with. You don't want to pay a receiver who has just significant drop problems year in and year out, but he does have chemistry with Daniel Jones. But I'm starting to think that chemistry doesn't really matter that much at this point in time because you look at Isaiah Hodgins stepped in and immediately developed chemistry with Daniel Jones and became his number one receiver over Darius Slayton in just a couple days. So I think Slayton is more than expendable. We can easily replace him with a mid-round burner like this. What do you think about Yoshivas? Do you see him as kind of a supplement for Slayton if they let him walk in free agency?
Yeah, I could totally see that being the replacement for Darius Slayton because Andre Yoshivas is, again, another player that stood out at the Senior Bowl and an all-world athlete. Track runner, like you said, like this guy is as athletic as they come, and that's why he's going to be drafted because if you look at his production, you look at where he played, all of those factors, a lot of the times guys like this don't even get drafted. They're priority undrafted free agents. But because this guy has the potential to run a 4.2 something 40-yard dash at the combine next month, he's going to get drafted. And teams are going to look at him as a very moldable piece of clay and bank on that athletic profile because it's arguably the best in the NFL draft this year. When you have a guy who's 6'3", runs a 4.2 something 40-yard dash, I mean, that is exactly what you want if you're an NFL GM scouting a player and saying, let me just give my coaching staff a chance to mold something into greatness because that is greatness right there. Like 6'3", 4.2 40, that is all of the makings of an elite receiver if he can put it all together with good coaching. So that's really the goal with Andre Yoshivas. One of these teams is going to say, I think we have the coaching staff to turn this guy into a superstar. And the Giants might be that team because they're looking at receivers. They're going to be doing a lot of scouting on these guys, and we've seen Brian Dable take a lot of no-name players and turn them into something. And Andre Yoshivas can be one of those mid to late round guys that he turns into something. And again, looking at his athletic profile, looking at the way that he played at the Senior Bowl, it's not like there's no flaws in his game, right? He doesn't run necessarily the best routes. I think Michael Wilson is a much better route runner if we're comparing the two players that we're discussing today. Andre Yoshivas, not perfect by any means, but like you said, Alex, his main concerns are not necessarily his own concerns. He played at Princeton, so he didn't face the best competition, right? He's not the best run blocker. Okay, does he necessarily need to be? No, he's a wide receiver first and foremost, not a tight end, right? So, and then you look at that and didn't run a diverse route tree. That's the other one that the Draft Network lists, again, Princeton didn't ask him to. They didn't need him to. They wanted him to just play their X receiver role because he was the best talent that they had. But in the NFL, he could be a jumbo slot because of his size and speed. Now, I could totally see that working out for him, or he could play that Z receiver role to get him acclimated to the NFL and not face him up against press coverage immediately. So I really like Andre Yoshivas projecting into that starting role that Darius Slayton was playing, like you said, Alex, because they don't ask Darius Slayton to run a very diverse route tree, do they? No, they pretty much ask him to run 9 routes, comeback routes, and deep in routes. That's about it. Andre Yoshivas, he can probably do all that same stuff, and he can do it for a fraction of the price that Darius Slayton would cost on a second contract. So when the Giants took a chance on Darius Slayton in the late rounds of the 2019 NFL Draft, it was a similar idea to the idea of taking Andre Yoshivas. Darius Slayton was 6'2", 6'3", ran 4'3" or 4'4" speed, real burner guy who can go deep and make some contested catches. Well, isn't that exactly what Andre Yoshivas is, except maybe faster, more athletic, and better at all of those things? Granted, he didn't play at the same school that Darius Slayton did. Darius Slayton played much tougher competition at Auburn, right? So you have a real discrepancy there in terms of talent faced in college. However, talent possessed, just raw physical athletic talent, you don't find many players with this raw physical athletic talent like Andre Yoshivas. And again, he put it on full display at the Senior Bowl. A lot of times with these guys who you see could be maybe late day 3 picks, right, in the NFL drafts, they've got all of that athleticism. They'll go to the Senior Bowl and they will crash out of the sky because they are facing real talent now. Andre Yoshivas didn't do that. He didn't crash out of the sky. Instead, he rose up draft boards. He proved that he does belong at that Senior Bowl and he does belong in the NFL. So if an NFL team is looking at him and they're really skeptical of him because of the competition that he played and his lack of experience, well, they're going to look at what he did at the Senior Bowl and say, you know what? This shows that he can face off against the best of the best, and there is something here to develop and mold at the next level. So Andre Yoshivas, he will be on the Giants draft board, absolutely, and if he does fall into those late rounds and becomes a day 3 pick, he's going to be a priority for the New York Giants, who are looking for low-key guys that they can develop into superstars.
Absolutely. I mean, look, both of these players, the Giants are going to spend 2 or 3 or 4 draft picks on receivers, but hey, if they don't go with a receiver in the first round, I could totally see them going after both of these guys, instead of going out and maybe saying, all right, we're going to go get a Jordan Addison. Maybe they're off the board. Their top options are off the board. They don't want to settle for Zay Flowers. And for what it's record, I take that back. It wouldn't be settling for Zay Flowers. It would just be a totally different strategy because I think they have a guy similar to him in Wan'Dale Robinson, but Zay Flowers is definitely a proven commodity at the collegiate level and is certainly productive. And I think I'd love to have him, but he is a smaller receiver. They need more boundary guys. They need more guys who have the versatility to go inside, outside, play Z, X, or rather Z slot and X. So I do think that there is value to having that dynamic, versatile approach. With that being said, Andre Yoshivas actually, I think, is more of an X boundary guy. Whereas I think Michael Wilson could kind of change and be a little bit more dynamic in that sense. I would love to bring both of these guys in. They have tons of upside in different ways. But the one thing they do both have in common, really good hands. They don't drop the football very much. And I think that is a variable we need to be valuing more than maybe we have in the past. Quentin Johnston, he has drop issues. Like this is a problem for him. Jordan Addison had drop issues. Even Zay Flowers had some drop issues. These are all players that are known to have drop issues. I think that Addison's getting better and has improved in that regard. I think Quentin Johnston still dropped 8 passes last year, and that's certainly a bit of a concern. But these two guys have great hands. So, there's a reason they're mid to late round picks. There's a reason we're talking about them as like kind of late round finds and gems. But with what it's worth, I do think having good hands, good route running, and good tangible traits really are good combinations to have, and they seem to be coachable too. So I am excited to discuss these guys in the future, maybe take a looking at their film. There's going to be a lot of film work we're going to be going through. Anthony has a ridiculous video, put in hours of work about Jordan Addison coming up and dropping in a couple days. So you guys are not going to want to miss that. If you're excited about Jordan Addison and you want to see more about him, you're going to see everything you need to see from Anthony's video. So I'm excited to actually watch that myself. He's been putting in the work for you guys, and it's certainly going to be worthwhile. But Anthony, I'll let you close it out after talking about these two really exciting prospects that the Giants could have on their draft boards this upcoming year.
Yeah, before we close it, I do want to pose this question to you. Like, if you had to prioritize either of these guys, which one are you going with? And I'll give my take first. And it's Michael Wilson for me. Like, I love the athletic profile of Andre Yoshivas, but when I look at Michael Wilson's tape, and particularly some of those clips that he had down at the Senior Bowl, like, this guy is actually probably one of the most slept on players in this year's draft class. Like, he's really flying up the board for me. And I think that this could be that gem on day 2 that a team finds and absolutely just blows everyone's mind with. Like, this guy runs really smoothly in and out of his breaks for a man his size. And I think that he's just got all of the makings of an NFL receiver that you can develop into a starter one day. And I love the fact that he can play the X, the Z, and the slot. I like Michael Wilson's ability to play all over the offense. And I think that gives him an opportunity to make an impact with the New York Giants as early as his rookie season, because when you're looking at the Giants receiving core, Sterling Shepard could be gone, Richie James could be gone, Darius Slayton could be gone. They're going to need to draft probably more than one receiver and sign more than one receiver this offseason to build out this receiving core. And if you have Michael Wilson on your team, you do have the ability to throw him out there at any of those positions and see which one he sticks at, because there's just so many opportunities for playing time on this Giants offense. So, Alex, before we wrap, which one do you prefer between these two guys, and why do you feel that way?
You know, it's tough. I'm having a tough time choosing between both of them because they're both really great in their own respects. Now, Andre Yoshivas actually has gotten some glowing reviews from OBJ's agent. You know, he's worked out with him apparently. So there is a connection there. And the agent brought him up to Joe Schoen himself. So, you know, there is a connection that we haven't even discussed this episode between those two guys already. But Michael Wilson at the Senior Bowl really showed me. I think I'm going to go with Andre Yoshivas. Just, you know, I'll play the other side of it because I think that Michael Wilson's injury history does concern me a bit. I don't know what exactly happened to him. I don't exactly know what this injury was last year. I don't think many people do. But Andre Yoshivas has proven to be a little bit more productive. He's proven to be healthier. He had better stats last year. Again, competition, a lot different. So you have to look at that and take it into account. But the track star speed definitely intrigues me. I think he could replace Darius Slayton. I think he'd be a great target with good hands. Like he's like Darius Slayton with good hands. Like that's what we're looking at him as right now. Burner downfield. And he's not afraid to keep going. You know what I mean? Darius Slayton, how many times did we see him just collapse and not take any hits? You know what I mean? How many times have we seen him do that and maybe fumble the ball against the Vikings, right? We saw him make plenty of mistakes over the years. I think Yoshivas, with his ability, strength, size, and his ability to catch the ball, could be a lot better, and I do like that aspect about him. So I'm going to go with Yoshivas for those reasons, but I'd be happy to have either of them. And I think both of them are going to be successful with the right coaches and the right opportunity. So I'll leave it at that. I'd love to go with the speed, the athleticism, but Michael Wilson, if we ended up with him as well, or either or, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. Valid points, valid arguments for both players, you know, which one you might prefer. And I think it'll ultimately boil down to the value, where they're available on which day and with which pick, and whether or not the Giants have already drafted a receiver or are targeting another guy in those late rounds. But that pretty much wraps this one up, diving into two mid-round, maybe late-round guys in the 2023 NFL Draft at the wide receiver position. This is just the start of it. There are so many prospects that we're going to be diving into right here on Fireside Giants. If you look at all of these mid-round receivers, Josh Downs out of UNC, Tank Dell out of Houston, Kayshon Boutte out of LSU. So many players that we're going to be diving into right here. So make sure to subscribe to Fireside Giants and ring the bell, bing, so you don't miss an episode. Leave a like if you enjoyed this one and comment your thoughts on these two players down below. We would love to interact with you guys and hear your thoughts on these two prospects. So we'll catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.
TVSO.